Welcome to it, brother. My man. I mean,
The Star is born.
how good is Whit Weeks? The celebration after the batted ball up in the air, which was nearly a touchdown, only reminiscent of Tyrann Mathieu on the road at West Virginia. Matthew's sophomore year, where he made an exact replica play on Geno Smith. Batted the ball in the air, nearly scored, was taken down at the 1 yard line, a lot like Weeks was. Then a play later, LSU scores. But Whit Weeks is the SEC's leading tackler as he comes out of that game and is playing at a whole nother level right now. And what Blake Baker has done with this defense in 1 year, I know we talked about it last week after their performance versus Ole Miss. I mean, how do you not start the conversation right now around LSU's defense when talking about them? And by the way, the disrespect on LSU, keep that coming. Like, I mean, the fact that they're still number 8 in the AP in Tennessee, or excuse me, that in Tennessee is ahead of them, and so many people were texting me yesterday, what is this? How is this? What is this? Look, you're in at this point. All you got to do is just keep doing what you're doing every single week. That stuff will take care of itself. But a disrespected LSU team is one that I like a lot more entering these week playoff games that you're in every Saturday. I mean, the same thing that you did last week that we were talking about, the build-up for Arkansas, we're about to do the same thing for Texas A&M. I mean, every single week it's a de facto playoff game, play-in game for LSU and for a lot of the teams that they're playing, specifically this weekend with A&M. And for LSU's standpoint, to begin the conversation around the defense, only, a year later, within a year of bringing Baker on, cannot be described enough of how big of a turnaround that is for this program. I mean, I know going into the season, the weariness that I had on LSU was, can they hold up defensively? Do they have the depth to get through it? And they didn't, it seems like. I mean, they got beat up. You lost Guillory. You lost Perkins. You've lost guys. And they have just continued to plug guys in there, plug players in there, and continue to make plays. At this point, I see nothing in front of LSU that scares me to an extent of you can't scheme with this staff and players that you have to win the game. I mean, really. So, I mean, looking at that in front of LSU, not one team in front of LSU scares me. Outside of Georgia, what they look like on defense this weekend. That's the defense that I thought they had. That was Mikael Williams. That was, that Ewers and Manning were seeing ghosts out there. You could have put Peyton, Eli, Vince Young in the game. They were seeing ghosts. And, that game was not as close as that score indicated. That was a blowout. The SEC got their first experience of Texas, the special treatment that they get. I've never seen that. I've never seen a call be made on the field, a call that's non-reviewable. You can't review PI. The fans throw a temper tantrum and throw bottles on the field. The referees huddle up and change the call. That hadn't even happened at Bama. And I've seen some crazy stuff in Tuscaloosa. That was wild. That was wild. But anyway, back to LSU. LSU leaves Saturday night 3-0, undefeated in the conference, goes up and really controls an Arkansas team that was feeling themselves going in, coming off of a bye week. And the story of it where, Nussmeier, 233 yards. C.J. Daniels, I thought, had a really nice game coming back, 7 catches, 86 yards. But the story's the defense. Whether it's Whit Weeks' 9 tackles or really just taking a Arkansas offense, Bobby Petrino, Trey'Dez Green, and just neutralizing them, stymieing them. I mean, creating turnovers, getting to the passer, getting behind the line of scrimmage, things that at this point in the season, to me, that makes LSU a real legitimate contender. I got no concern about the offense. I really don't. I mean, I know there's some things that you would like to have from a performance standpoint, week in, week out, that's more consistent. But I just think when you have to have LSU's offense, there's too many players and they're too good up front to not perform. But if the defense can play keep up and they can get off the field and create 3 and outs and get stops and get to the passer and get turnovers, I mean, LSU is as scary of a team in the top 10 that I think exists. I think there's a little class there. Obviously, you've got Oregon and Georgia with 2 big wins. Oregon over Ohio State, Georgia going into Texas. But there's still teams that look like they have some vulnerabilities. Nobody looks like they are untouchable in this season's race, which, to me, if you get in, it's wide open. And LSU feels like a team that the more and more these weeks roll by, it's impossible to ignore them. It's impossible to say, well, they replaced too many people on defense. They can't compete. No, it's a team that is coached up on the defensive side of the ball with a scheme, and you've got players like Swinson and Weeks now who are emerging as all-conference, possibly all-American type candidates. And then you've got the rest of the group around them playing with a belief that hasn't been there in a while. I mean, you're talking about back-to-back weeks where Major Burns has played at a high level. And like Kelly said 2 weeks ago, Major Burns is an easy target. He's a piñata for a lot of people. He's also a piñata for offensive coordinators over the last year and a half. Over the last 2 weeks, they have him in a position where it doesn't seem like even Lane Kiffin and Bobby Petrino can single him up. I mean, those are 2 dynamic play callers that's what they're looking for. That's what those great ones do. They find the mismatch and they just pound it, exploit it. And last year for Kiffin, a lot of that was Burns. I mean, even the Texas A&M game with Bobby Petrino. I mean, they were finding the weakness on LSU's defense, and they were trying to exploit that. A year later, those guys advantage LSU in that matchup, where the defense is really the story and creating a balance to LSU now going into late October, November, where, hey, man, it's on. I mean, LSU's sitting in a great spot to really advance this thing and get into the field, obviously, and forget the disrespect of the AP poll. I mean, like, good. Top 8, you're in. You know? Oh, they're 8th. Sweet. Get them in.
It's kind of like Noah was saying last week, where it feels like LSU is on one of the few teams where it's on a week-by-week prove-it basis. Right. Every game that they look at, they're like, okay, we're not going to inch you up that much because you still have so much in front of you on the schedule. A&M is what, like 14?
Right.
And so they look at that and go, okay, do it again, then we'll move you up. Do it again, then we'll move you up. And even if you're able to play Texas A&M, play them well and win, they're still going to do the same thing and go, well, you still got Bama on the schedule. And I'd imagine they move that to kind of like they did with LSU last year in the Ole Miss game, like try to make it a top 10 matchup to where the narrative and the storyline's a little bit better going into it as opposed to, oh, this LSU team's ranked 8th. Alabama's going to be what? What are they in the AP poll now?
15.
Like, I feel like if Alabama, they're on a bye, huh? This week?
Should be.
Missouri and then a bye. Yeah, because they always line up with LSU. So if they can get a win over Missouri, it feels like they'll probably move them up. You can move LSU up to 7, 6, and put Alabama at 10. I think that's something that they're probably looking for just from a narrative standpoint, and then you get game day to Baton Rouge.
And before that Alabama game, I think the college football playoff rankings were released on November 5th.
Oh, yeah.
So on
It's
the
always
Tuesday
that week.
before.
Yeah, it's always that
So
week.
this AP poll, you can say what you want about it. The real rankings will come out that week. And
And
you'll
even
see what it
those,
is.
put no stock in it.
Right.
You know, I mean, even that is a TV show.
Was it 2015, the first ranking LSU came in at number 2?
Yeah, it was the first ranking ever.
Yep.
I mean, that was the weekend that Fournette and they went to Tuscaloosa and they just ran into a wall. Terry McGill, I wonder who said a 7 or more point win for LSU and bring back Caskey's clicker or a version of that, and expect the mismatch this week to be with the slot players against Texas A&M safeties and linebackers. I tell you, one slot player that looks fantastic after moving over is Trey'Dez Green.
Cool. How many snaps did he play, too?
They don't take him off the field. I mean, like he is out there and you can see, especially within the red zone, they run that crossing route and they've told Nussmeier, throw it on floor 10 and just watch him rise up and get. I mean, he overthrew him on the first one. And then he just went up there and, cyclopsed it on the second one. He is a
2-point conversion.
freak.
I think everybody in the building was like, they're probably throwing it to 14 here. And it's like,
Yes.
yeah, stop it.
Yeah, right. Line up and stop it. I mean, he is
Takes a late shot, too, and just looks at it. He's like, what are you doing?
total mismatch.
I mean, just looking at him on the field, like some of the pictures of just him lined up on the line, you're like, this is a giant next to other giants. Like, he looks massive.
On a field of freaks, he is by far the freakiest.
Yes, he looks fantastic in that spot.
And that's what Brian Kelly said going into it when they made the decision to move him. They're like, we're not trying to overload him with things that a wide receiver has to know. It's very much put him out there, and he wants you to say after the game, who was 14?
Right.
And that's what it feels like Arkansas was probably feeling when you know kind of about Trey'Dez Green, but when you see him on the football field, like, who is that?
And
And
then
it looks exactly like that.
his hands. Like he catches everything. Remember, Daily, we're brought to you by Go Roof online at GEAUXroof.com, GEAUXroof.com. For a brand new roof or roof maintenance, get in touch with Go Roof today. 225-927-8300 is the phone number. 225-927-8300 is the phone number to get in touch with Go Roof. As we said, so much community experience and been around the community for a while, over 15 years. Great, get in touch with them online, GEAUXroof.com, GEAUXroof.com. Joe Summer asked Jordy, how do you feel about the weird defensive formation where they were all stacked behind one another? I'm riding with Blake Baker.
Whatever he wants to
I
do.
mean,
I don't care.
Look, I'm not the guy to ask for defensive scheme. I'm trusting Baker. And whatever he's doing, whatever levers he's pulling this season are working. And I think more than anything that's noticeable when you watch this defense play is that they just trust him. Brian Kelly said it last week after the Ole Miss game. Major Burns told Brian Kelly it's the first time that a coach has told him something that he believed it. And, for as honest and transparent as that is from the veteran, that adds a lot of light onto really what the issue was. I mean, so many times have you been told, what's the deal? These are the same players. Yeah, it's the players that now trust what the coach is saying. Those guys were going out there and freelancing. They were in the wrong spots. They didn't know where they're supposed to be. They weren't lined up on the same page. One was running cover 2. The other was running man. I mean, it was a debacle defensively for LSU that all came to a head for Matt House in year 2. And this year, more than anything, it looks like Burns, it looks like Swinson, it looks like Weeks, it looks like Savion Jones.
Sage Ryan.
I mean, it looks like these guys trust what the coach is telling them, where they're supposed to be, what they need to be looking at, what they need to be reading. And now you've just got athletes making plays and playing without thinking. I mean, did we ever debate whether or not Sage Ryan was a good athlete? Did it look like Sage Ryan was trying to complete the ACT out there while he was playing football? I mean, he was thinking and moving on Saturday. I mean, that's the best hit I've seen a safety make since Jamal Adams. That's LSU defense. I mean, throw the flag. I mean, that's that's who LSU was for an extended amount of time when they were at the top of the SEC and at some points dominating it. And I don't know if that ever comes back, but I know that you have a guy in Blake Baker who sat right here in the studio and told me that they study the history of the LSU defense, whether it's players, whether it's eras, whether it's coordinators, whether it's just games where the defense would win. These guys are getting caught up to speed on what it means to be inside of the program and play on that side of the ball. That was lost for a while, right? I mean, that seems like this group is really pulling that back and prideful about that in the way that they play, in the way that they just carry themselves out there now. I mean, you're starting to kind of get that feel of, I mean, once DJ Pickett, once some of these four-star guys up front that Bo Davis is bringing in, once Keelan Moses gets here, once some of these defensive side of the guy, defensive guys that they have coming in start running these schemes, I mean, it feels like the way back, man. I mean, it feels like you're on track to the way back. And don't get me wrong, I do not want to sacrifice the offense that LSU is putting up and the execution that they play at on that side and what now has become, kind of the identity of the program, whether it's quarterback play, whether it's, efficiency at the wide receiver spot, whether it's offensive line play, all of it. I mean, they got it going on the offense. I'm not trying to sacrifice that. But there's nothing like having a good defense in football. There's nothing like having a trustworthy defense in football that when you roll it out, like how confident was Kirby Smart when he got off the bus Saturday? He knew, like, I finally got Mikael Williams playing at a high level. I finally got 11, what's his name, Jalen Walker, playing at a healthy high level. Sark is going to be seeing a maze for 3.5 hours tonight. And you could sense it. I mean, he knew. It doesn't matter. Carson Beck's no good. Really.
3 interceptions.
I mean, Carson Beck is no good. Oh, he didn't play good in a big game? No. He's no good. Like, at this point, like, we've seen it. He's not any good. And it don't matter. It doesn't matter. If you have a defense that can put offensive minds like Sark, quarterbacks with experience like Ewers, talent like, I mean, Kelvin Banks haven't given up a sack in 3 years. He gave up 2 in the first half on Saturday night.
Georgia's defense in the first half allowed 38 yards, 3 turnovers, 5 sacks, 7 tackles for loss in the first half.
I mean, did you watch that game?
Yeah.
That is scary defensive football that, I mean, is not that far removed from LSU's program. I'm talking about over the last decade, LSU played at that type of level on defense where they would scare the ever-living hell out of people. In fact, I saw it was like the 10-year anniversary of the A&M game where Harold Simon picked off Johnny Manziel and held Manziel to under like 50 yards rushing. Billy Lucci will tell you, and we'll try to link up with Luch this week, but, I mean, Manziel was only scared twice in his college career that he's admitted to. The first one was when he played that game in College Station, and Mingo and Eric Reed and all those cats were on the other side of the ball. Michael Brockers. And then coming in a year later to LSU where Rashard Robinson shut Mike Evans and Manziel down. That was LSU football. I mean, that was, the Jaden Daniels of that time admitting, like, I don't want to play those guys. I'd rather go to Tuscaloosa than play that group. And, I mean, let LSU get that reputation back where you've got a defensive coordinator that's scheming up 4- and 5-star guys that are just flying around without thinking. And you got a Heisman Trophy candidate quarterback, seemingly, every year. Right? I mean, it's been fun. It's been awesome. I mean, I'm not saying that like I'd rather this for that. But there's nothing like having a good defense.
Well, I mean, you're seeing it just where LSU is now. Obviously wanting to get back to that level, but that's back-to-back games where the offense really hasn't been at its best, and the defense has kept LSU in the football game.
Yeah.
Like, basically won the game against Ole Miss, and then, I mean, it was 16-10 before that Whit Weeks play and where it really kind of turned.
Yeah.
Because the offense really hadn't gotten much going outside of
Caden Durham.
Field goal. Yeah, Caden Durham and Damian Ramos.
Yeah.
And then the defense goes and makes a play, and from then on just kept you in it.
And that's what I think you're starting to see Brian Kelly trust this defense a lot more, because I don't think, certainly not last year, are you trotting out Danny Ramos 4 times.
No way.
Because you feel like you have to score touchdowns to be able to compete.
And not from the length.
No.
Ramos was drilling
47?
them from. I mean, he had a couple of 40-plussers.
He had a 48-yarder and a 47-yarder. But that's what I thought was most interesting, like watching the game, being there. I was expecting almost, obviously, you score on the first drive, and that's what LSU, they want to start fast. But I think a part of that starting fast is taking points when you can get them, and putting Ramos out there twice in a row when Brian Kelly has shown a propensity to go for it. You have to get touchdowns. That's what it felt like that he wanted to do, and I don't blame him because he was so gun-shy from last year where you try to go up 13-6, that ain't lasting very long.
Right.
And it's going to be 21-13. You go, those points didn't matter. With this defense, if you can keep just scoring and keep the pressure and keep them at an arm's length away for whoever you're playing, that LSU defense is going to keep you in football games, and at some point that offense is going to come bear fruit and going to be able to score some points that end up in touchdowns. And that's why, talk about playing complementary football, and Brian Kelly said this is the first time LSU has played for 4 quarters the style of football that they want to play, and that bore fruit. It's not easy to go on the road in the SEC in that environment where Arkansas had the stars out. They wanted everything. This is their Super Bowl. Arkansas wants the boot. They want to be able to beat LSU. They want to end your season, and they feel like they can play with anybody after the Tennessee game. And for you to kind of go in there and take care of business to where it was never really that close, even though the mistakes that you made on offense kind of kept them in the football game where you had to kick field goals, I think that speaks volumes to what LSU's trying to do and what they're building, both offensively and now defensively, and the special teams are solid.
Right. All right, let's go to the Brian Kelly press conference afterwards. Get some of this sound after the big win on the road Saturday night. LSU will be back on the road versus A&M this coming weekend. They'll go into a bye week, and then they'll they will go through the last month with 3 of 4 in Tiger Stadium. Here's Brian Kelly's opening remarks following the win.
Obviously, these games have always been close games, but to come down here and play, the kind of football we did today, which was control the line of scrimmage. They had 38 yards rushing, and for us to run the football and close out the game with a drive of 8 minutes and 20 seconds, virtually running the ball every down. That's, those are the things that you look for in, a football team that is emerging as a contender. So proud of our group, proud of the way they prepared for this game, and certainly when you go on the road and win in an SEC venue, certainly a lot of things are coming together for our football team. So again, proud of the effort, and game ball went out to Damian Ramos. I thought the field goal kicks, while the game was still in balance, helped us, stay ahead of it and keep the momentum. And again, made some big plays. The West Weeks, obviously deflection and interception apparently was the backbreaker in the game. So great victory. Now we'll get 24 hours to enjoy it, and then we got to get back on the road and play the best team in the SEC right now. The only team that's, other than us, undefeated. So another great challenge.
Brian Kelly's opening remarks Saturday night after the win versus Arkansas. I'm not sure the plan behind other teams scheduling LSU as a homecoming. Like, I mean, that's a choice. I mean, you know, like you have the choice to do that, and whatever your choice is your prerogative. It's your deal. I just think that there would be a lot easier ways of handling homecoming weeks rather than giving a team that you consider, Arkansas considers to be much more of a rival than LSU does, to put a homecoming game on a team that you consider a rival. That is like some free bulletin board material that obviously, I mean, Brian Kelly's the type of guy where he's going to let you know what he's thinking. He's not going to really hide. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to hide how he's feeling. And his comment at the end of the press conference, you know, about the homecoming on the way out, obviously got some run in the locker room this week. Obviously got some run on the practice field this week, right? I mean, it's like, you know, some of these moments in these games that stand out. I mean, one of the biggest blunders of Les Miles's career was against Arkansas, where he's got the national championship team. He's got a team that wins the national championship that year, going up against an Arkansas club with legitimately 3 first-round running backs. 3. Arguably, maybe the number 1 pick in the draft at the time, Darren McFadden, Felix Jones, who went on to be a first-round pick, and Peyton Hillis, who went on to have a 4-year run where he was considered one of the best backs in the league. All on the same team. Nobody you really want to mess with in a game in a week where it's already going to be energized. It's already going to be juiced up. And on Monday of the press conference, Arkansas, of the Arkansas week, Les Miles refers to Arkansas as Arkansas. Like over and over and over again. And I remember being in the room and people being like, what in the hell is this guy doing? Like, as if this game needs any more fuel for a team to become more energized of coming in. That's the way I look at putting a homecoming title on a game that you, Arkansas, say is a rival. I mean, like, you're the one that wants this thing to become such a bitter rivalry, and you need more fuel on it? I didn't think that made any sense. It's obviously something that Brian Kelly played up to his team. It's obviously something that his team took a little bit to heart. Here's Kelly talking about Whit Weeks' performance. Weeks just under 10 tackles on the night. Some highlights that'll live on forever. But here is Kelly talking about his sophomore linebacker.
Well, it's Whit Weeks. You know, he's active, and in that situation, he was in a pressure situation where he was blitzing. But I think what stands out is, you know, he's active in virtually all of the plays. You saw a great play that he made coming later in the game down the line of scrimmage on a ball that bounced outside. He's an elite player.
So there's Kelly talking about Weeks, and Weeks very impressive again for the second consecutive week where he just is, he's seeing it. He's instinctively getting to the ball. He is creating and making plays when he gets there. He's showing up pissed off, and right now I would be hard-pressed to find a better defender at that level in the league. I know Georgia's All-Stars looked fantastic on Saturday in Austin, but Whit Weeks is got to be in the discussion, at least for the later part of the year, as a defensive player of the year type candidate. I mean, if he keeps up this pace, I'm just saying he's throwing his name into the conversation. If he would have been a starter day one, I think he's a midseason All-American if he's playing at that rate, right? If he closes this season out at the rate that he's been playing the past couple of weeks, he may have enough games, highlights, and time to be an All-American this season. That's the level that this guy is playing at. I mean, I was at my sisters, my in-laws, their place watching the game Saturday night, And one of my brother-in-laws walked out. He was like, "Are you seeing this?" He was like, "This is incredible stuff, right?" I mean, like, he's taking over this game defensively. If he's not on the solo tackle or batting the ball up in the air, he's around the football. I mean, if he's not dragging the player to the ground, he's on the pile that's putting him on the ground. He is playing defense at a level that you know. I mean, it's so fun to watch. It's rare that you get these types of runs. A lot like Perkins had a couple of years ago, where you just go on these game tears of this guy's going to take the game over. I mean, I know that you wouldn't have Weeks as the suspect if you had LSU lined up and said, who do you think's dominating the defensive group? But 40 for LSU is playing at a different level, man. And week in, week out, it is fun to watch. Here is more from Kelly talking about executing and finding a balance on all the aspects of the program right now.
Well, I think first and foremost, our guys are, we made some mistakes on the first drive, quite frankly. We had some errors. I think our guys were a little bit distracted emotionally. They were so charged up. We made some errors. We settled down, and I think what happened after that was guys did their job the way they were supposed to do it when they needed to do it, and that's execution, really. And they executed. They're beginning to execute at a much higher level consistently. And it starts with controlling the line of scrimmage. They could not run the ball. They became one-dimensional. And when that happens, we can get after it. And we can get after the quarterback. And we made...
You can feel Kelly, he's getting, he's starting to feel his defense is coming on. Here's one more from Kelly talking about where they are right now mentally from a program standpoint. This is 4.
That's in front of it.
Yeah, they have not blinked. We lost Jacoby and Gilroy, one of our, arguably our most talented and experienced defensive tackle. Then, obviously Harold Perkins, right? And, we haven't had Chris, who's our, vertical threat all year. And it just seems these guys just keep, playing, through, and the next man stepping up. Nothing seems to faze this group, whether they're down 17-0 on the road, or, struggling to put together, a great drive. They just keep playing, and it's to their credit. Now they're playing cleaner, and I think that's a sign of it.
That's the part earlier in the season that we talked about was going to be concerning about LSU. Will they have that next man mentality? Will they be able to execute that? And without question, LSU has been able to execute that, which has been really the difference to me of the season. I mean, if you said going into the year that you would be entering mid-October without Guillory, Perkins, John Emery, I mean, you're looking at next season. You're hoping that you can keep the recruiting class together. But LSU has took that on the chin, continued to move forward, and find themselves in a playoff position in a spot where, I mean, there's 2 undefeated teams left in the league. They play